My husband admitted to cheating with his best friend. I'm not mad, and I don't know why. What should I do? I, 35, have been married to my husband for a bit under 10 years now. We have no children. Yesterday night, after dinner, my husband, Jay, broke down and admitted he's been sleeping with his childhood best friend, Pete, for quite a while now, longer than I want to say. It was the first time I have seen him cry in more than 2 years over something serious. Jay is the kind that cries over dogs dying in shows but is stony silent at tragedy. However, I'm not mad. I'm not even sure I care. I do love my husband more than anything in the world and I don't want to leave him. I can't move on, I can't stay like this and I don't want to. But Jay has said he won't stop seeing Pete, no matter what I choose. He's sorry for doing this to me and he has said he loves me, and I'm his wife and heart, but Pete means the same to him. Basically he can't choose. He loves us both. It falls to me to choose and I don't know what to do. Honestly, the bit that hurts the most is the fact that Pete is a good friend of mine, but he couldn't face me himself and instead let Jay break down in front of me. Sorry this turned into a rant, any advice would help. If anyone's gone through something similar. TLDR, husband cheated with a friend, wants me to choose between staying with him and him continuing to see his affair partner and divorce. I can't choose without advice. I want to stay with him. I honestly don't feel anything about this affair honestly. Edit. It's come up a bit so. My husband has been openly bisexual since before I even met him. Peter is bi or pan. He's dated guys and girls, and others, in the past. No one in the last 3 years to my knowledge. I'm straight. Edit 2. Since apparently I have no self-esteem, I guess I couldn't possibly have 4 degrees, a PhD, make roughly $120K a year, be the main provider for the household, run my own business and go to the gym twice a week. I know I look good. I actually have a rather large ego about myself. This honestly has nothing to do with self-esteem. I don't know where it reads that I'm a poor little girl who got in over her head by a big strong man, but I can bench press Jay and weight. I know what I'm worth and I know I want Jay so. Relevant comments. Comment 1, leave OP, I don't know if I should though. We're happy, we can still be happy. Throwing that away seems, I don't know. Comment 2, so you don't mind sharing your husband. How many nights a week will you get to be with him? Or will his friend be moving in with you? OP, I don't know. He's managed to be with Pete enough in the time we currently have. I don't know how it would change if I stayed. Comment 3. What I don't understand is, why don't you want better for yourself? He told you he doesn't care if you stay or leave. But Pete? He stays, I think, because he cares about his relationship with Pete. How do you stay with someone who doesn't care if you stay? He doesn't want to fight for this relationship. You yourself said you don't care that he cheated. You are financially independent. What's keeping you from just ending it and moving on? You say you love him, but if you did, wouldn't you care that he's cheated for years with a person you considered a friend? Wouldn't you care that he's chosen his relationship with Pete as the one he can't let go of? OP, must be how I wrote the post, sorry. Jay does care, he just can't choose and doesn't want to force me to choose. He's staying at a friend's house, not Pete's. I double-checked, he's staying with a married couple of lesbian friend we have. So he's not cheating with them, right now, so I have the house and quote, as long as I need to do anything. Is it bad that I don't really care that he cheated? I have some heartache of the lies and who it was with, not that it was a man, but Pete, but the actual cheating itself doesn't bother me too much and I honestly think I could just move on, ignore it or somehow work with it. Update. After reading all your advice I chose to ask for space, which he, J36M, freely gave. He was staying at a friend's house when I called, I couldn't face him yet. And asked. This helped to confirm what I already knew, he was indeed staying with our mutual friends. A married lesbian, both 36F couple, so no, he didn't run to Pete, 36M as some of you thought. I was leaning towards separation after reading your advice. Well, a few days after I requested space, I decided to ask for separation officially. To cut a long ice cream and tear-filled 3 weeks short, I caved and called him. I did not beg for him back or anything like that. I asked him out for a walk and we had a long talk. It was a fair while ago so I can't word for word type what was said, but it boiled down to this. 1. I still love him no matter what. 2. He still loves me no matter what. 3. He loves Pete no matter what. 4. He does not value either of us above the other. When he spoke about me leaving but him not leaving Pete, he was giving me an out more than anything else. Jay would be destroyed if I chose to leave, but he didn't want me to stay if I truly didn't want to, which is why he didn't beg for me to stay. After this talk, we stayed separate for a few more days. About 7 weeks ago, Jay moved back home and Pete came over for dinner. That talk was longer, harder and contained more personal details that I do not want to share here. But the points were as follows. Jay and Pete have not been together as long as I feared. It's about 28 months, not since they were teens. Pete truly didn't want me to get hurt and he was the one pushing Jay to be honest with me. Pete is gay, but he dated girls in the past. Neither of us are attracted to each other and we are not together. We are all going to individual and couples and group therapy. Couples are each of us as. Me and Jay need to work out our marriage and emotions, Pete and Jay need to work out the secrecy and talk through their own relationship and Pete and I want to work on working together. Something I should have mentioned but didn't due to the fact I knew how Reddit would react, is I'm asexual. I am not in any way sexually attracted to my husband, or anyone for that matter. However, I choose to have sex with him as I know he enjoys it. I still have a libido, I just don't feel the need to have sex. When I have sex with Jay, rarely, once every 2-ish month, it isn't a chore but more a more intimate cuddle. Jay knows this and has known this our entire marriage. In fact, he was the one who helped me figure out I was asexual. If this is hard for you to understand, remember attraction choices. Asophobes will be blocked with no reply, honest questions can be answered. So yeah, that's my story. I can take further questions in the comments. TLDR, we separated, cried, got back together, are happy, I got a promotion and we are all in therapy together and individually. Relevant comments. Comment 1, sorry I'm a bit confused. Are you guys a throuple minus the sex? Or did you get back together with Jay and accept he has sex with Pete? Also, does that mean you now don't have to have sex with Jay out of obligation anymore, because he's getting his needs met by Pete? OP, me and Pete are not together. I don't know if I will have sex with Jay again, it's something I'm working on in therapy. My ex-husband left when I was pregnant with twins. Now, he suspects I cheated and demands a paternity test for my children. My ex-husband and I have 3 children. It was a difficult split as he left while I was pregnant with our twins and he tried to make everything as difficult as possible. He and his wife are wanting me to do a paternity test on the children as they are disputing that our youngest is his and he no longer wants to pay child support for her. Him wanting to reduce his child support has been an ongoing issue. For the last 5 years, he hasn't had a problem regarding the paternity of any of our children. He's now stating that he doesn't think that our daughter is his and that I have cheated because she doesn't look like him. She doesn't look much like me either, she's got green eyes like I do. Both of us are pale with light-colored hair and eyes. Our daughter has dark hair that is thick and curly. She looks mixed race and she's the only one who looks this way. Her twin brother looks like my ex-husband. My daughter looks like my grandmother who was mixed race and was white passing. I'll be honest that he and his wife do not get along. I mean it is hard to get along with the woman who your husband left you for. She keeps trying to shove herself in my children's lives and acting like their mom. She keeps insisting that she's mama, and they should refer to her as that. They have refused to call her that, which always ends at my ex calling me frustrated that the children won't give her respect. She's recently been pointing out that my youngest looks darker than her siblings and has been suggesting that my youngest isn't my ex-husband's. I'm close with my former ex's brother's wife, and she told me before my ex did that he wanted a paternity test and was going to stop paying child support for her. She's also said that ex and his wife are once again having money issues. This was something I had already suspected as he had stopped taking them on his weekends as he was having to work overtime. Before people tell me to document this, I have everything documented. I refuse to answer calls from him, which forces him to either text or email me so that I can keep conversation records as I don't trust him. After I found out about him wanting a paternity test, I told him that I wasn't going to consent to him doing a paternity test on the children and the only way he was getting one is if he took me to court. He told me that it was clear our daughter wasn't his and that she didn't look like her siblings. He argued that he couldn't afford court and I was holding his money hostage by forcing him to pay for a child who isn't his. He has now apparently been whining about me on Facebook about how I cheated on him and am forcing him to raise another man's child and forced him to sign the birth certificate. I didn't, he wasn't even there, but as we were still married I could put him on without him being there. I don't follow him. I had one of his friends try and confront me about it. I want my children to have a relationship with their dad and I feel like this is stopping them. Though on the other hand, I know there will be something else he, or his wife, takes issue with down the line. Ada for refusing to do a paternity test. Edit. I thought I'd put this in my post but I didn't. Really should have proofread this rather than posting in anger. My ex wants me to pay for the paternity test. He doesn't want to because of his financial situation, which is why I told him to take it to court and get a court-mandated one. I know if I was to pay for it then he would want another one because he'll think that I tampered with it as I paid for it. He did the same when I had the house valued so I could give him half. He didn't like what the first person valued it at, so had to get another. I know I haven't cheated on him and she is his. I know some didn't like me referring to her as my youngest. Both her and her brother don't like being referred to as twins, or as one, so I don't refer to them as such. Since they were toddlers they have been very independent from each other and want to be treated as such. She is not my only daughter, my eldest is also a girl. Update. So I did not expect so many comments on my last post. After I posted in my frustration over the paternity test situation, my ex-husband, we'll call him Jim, and his wife kept trying to get me to consent to and pay for the paternity test. I refused to pay because I know Jim, when the result isn't what he wants he will accuse me of tampering with the results. When I kept saying no, they ran to whoever would listen complaining about me and how I was forcing them to pay for a child that wasn't Jim's. For those who may not have read my last post, the child in question is my youngest daughter and a twin. Jim does not contest that her twin brother is his. But apparently along with being a bitch over this, I'm also a cat. News to me. Honestly, I didn't think he was that much of an idiot, but here we are. Jim kept complaining to his dad, Mick, and brother about me and how I was being financially abusive by taking money from him for a child that wasn't his and refusing to pay for the paternity test. Now Mick and I get on very well. He adores his grandchildren. They also adore him. And I have never attempted to stop them having a relationship, unlike Jim who often attempts to weaponize the children. I get on very well with Jim's family and we are close, his SIL, his brother's wife, and I are very close. She's the sister I never had. Only child problems. Mick asked if he was to pay for a paternity test, if I would allow it to happen. Mick explained that he wasn't accusing me of anything, but he was fed up with seeing Jim and his wife drag me every chance they got. He understood why I was refusing and agreed with me. I agreed but stated that Jim should choose the company that the paternity test is done through and I didn't want to know which one was chosen. That way I wasn't involved. So we had the paternity test. Mick paid for all 3 children to be tested and had them tested with the private company Jim chose and then a private company Mick's lawyer recommended. Mick explained he did this so that if Jim started arguing against the results calling them fake then Mick had another set to back them up. And what do you know, all 3 children are Jim's. Since we've gotten the results Jim has tried arguing that they're wrong and that youngest definitely isn't his. He has also been taking to Facebook to complain about me and is threatening to take me to court for fraud. The man couldn't afford to pay for a paternity test. He definitely can't afford a lawyer to take me to court, but I'd like to see him try. Former SIL has been screenshotting some of his comments and sending them over to me, which we've been having a giggle over, especially since one of the things Jim has whining about is finding out I've been dating a former friend of his. I say former because he, along with some others, were cut out by Jim's wife. Jim's upset because I'm alienating him from the children by dating someone new, coming from the man who left me when I was pregnant for his now wife who keeps trying to insist she is mama to my children. My children only met my boyfriend for the first time this weekend, after we had been dating for a year. Before people jump to Jim's defense and claim I'm alienating him, I've never stopped him seeing or communicating with the children. He's the one that decides when he's interested in being their dad. So yeah, unsurprisingly my children are Jim's. Jim's still an idiot. The children are happy as they're off to have a sleepover at their granddad's with cousins, while I get to have wine and spend the evening catching up with former SIL. Jim and his wife are still mouthing off on social media, but it's falling on deaf ears for the most part. Relevant comments. Comment 1, he left when you were pregnant with twins but doesn't believe the youngest is his. I didn't read past that because that doesn't make sense to me. Wouldn't the twins then be the youngest? OP, that's correct. She is the younger of my twins. Comment 2, so he thinks only one of the twins isn't his? OP, yep, he only thinks one of the twins is his. I wish I could explain why he thinks that, but he was never the smartest. I've realized that I have lost all respect for my husband's willful ignorance, and it may damage my marriage. I, 33, and my husband, 37, were having a discussion about politics and we got onto the topic of our daughter, 7, which led to me expressing my fears about her rights and bodily autonomy. For context, my husband votes Republican and I have always considered myself independent but recently have been shifting very far away from my younger, carefree attitude toward politics. I love him very much and I know for a fact that he loves me, but I have started finding his opinions naive and lacking depth. He is a very good man though and has in the past changed his mind on several things when confronted with them. Further context, my cousin lives in a strict anti-abortion state and almost died a few years ago when the doctors waited until she was actively dying of sepsis before they decided it was okay to remove the dead baby from her body even though it had been dead for weeks beforehand. So needless to say, I had a wake-up call and sharpened up my principles until they are very shiny and pointy. Last night when we were talking about abortion rights being healthcare, I lost my composure out of sheer terror about the possibility of a similar disaster with my cousin happening to our daughter, and how I struggle to understand how he doesn't see the problem with his party, and that in fact I think he is being willfully ignorant to the danger I and my daughter face in favor of his idea about making economics work for our family. I also said that if our daughter dies due to something preventable, like the ability to get a timely and much needed abortion, or gets shot to death in school, that I would let my own mother rot in a nursing home. She votes R2, and I'd never be able to look him in the face again, which would basically be me disappearing and divorcing him. I was crying and upset and explaining how scared I was, and he asked me in a very hurt manner if I'd actually abandon him like that. I am truthful to a fault and said that I would, perhaps out of a sense of illogical grief and betrayal, because I'd know my concerns were not taken seriously and that they had abandoned common sense and did nothing to attempt preventing a very real consequence of voting away mine and my daughter's right to health care. I equated it to a slow-motion car wreck with our daughter in mortal danger and him just watching it happen because it doesn't involve his own body. I know he needs to hear it. But I think I was too raw and open about it to steer the conversation in a healthy way, and I have a very blunt manner. I apologized this morning for saying that I'd leave him, even though I knew I would, and he tentatively accepted it. And I said we'd talk about things later when I can articulate things in a healthier way. But I'm at a loss as to how to make it known how deadly serious this is to me and not make him feel like I'd abandon our marriage over just any sensitive topic. I do not need people telling me to leave him. I don't think I know how to make it any more digestible and be clear without going nuclear over something that has not happened, as our daughter is too young to suffer that yet. The rub is that I am the person who is changing the dynamic of our relationship, and I'm beginning to understand how politics breaks up families. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Ask him to name scenarios that he would accept the premature death of his daughter. Ask him to name what life-saving healthcare he would be willing to deny for his daughter based on principles. If he can't name any, ask him why is abortion different. Use your cousin's story as a hypothetical for your daughter, but be as graphic with it as you can be. But in all honesty, if you must labor so much to convince him to care about yours and your daughter's health and well-being, then this should also serve as a wake-up call to you. And if I were you, I'd take back your apology. You meant what you said and only apologized to comfort him. I say let him be uncomfortable. Why are you so concerned with the bluntness of your words and not concerned about how quick he is to dismiss you? Comment 2. I'm the daughter of a Republican dad and liberal mom. I'm honestly not sure why they are still together, and think it is because they are older and retired. Luckily, I live in a liberal state that doesn't take away human rights, so I think it allows my mom not to think about it as much. It's been since Trump that I've really seen the division between them. I don't really have any advice to give you, but the perspective from a daughter in a similar type of situation. I love my dad, but I don't have a lot of respect for him because I don't think he actually understands what's going on. It hurts as a daughter to know my dad votes for a party that is actively doing bad to a lot of human rights, mainly because he believes in the economics of Republicans. I also hate having to be around my parents in the evening, especially if they are watching the news. My mom definitely holds frustration for my dad and takes it out by saying mean things to him. And I feel like my dad doesn't take it seriously, because I don't think he actually understands how scary this is for certain people. I wish my parents would do therapy together, and honestly you guys should probably do therapy together if you actually want to make your marriage work without resentment growing. Comment 3. The worst part is all these men talk about the economics of being a Republican, when all the data shows time and time again that those economics are absolutely horrible for 99.9% of us. They literally will cause harm to their families and others because they believe lies and don't want to hear otherwise. Comment 4. I understand why you don't want advice to leave him, but you may have to accept that as your reality simply because your morals, values, and ethics are no longer compatible. But of course, do everything you can to try to reach him. Obviously, deep down, you know him and know he has the potential. I went through this with my own husband years ago. And I wasn't nice about it. It was pretty much a deal breaker for me then, and now, and he was too busy being smugly libertarian on every other issue, so I had nothing to lose. That said, once he extracted his head from his rectum, I've been happy to explain things from my perspective as long as he's willing to actually listen. He's not perfect, but he gets a lot that men generally don't or take for granted. I do know that one of my big points was that his views meant I couldn't trust him. Women's reproductive rights sure don't affect men directly, but by not caring about the issue because they care about the women in their life, they are sending a clear message that women are interchangeable appliances. He either cares about the things that are important to you or he doesn't actually care about you. He can't claim to love and respect you and want a future with you if he's voting against your basic interests. That is hurtful for you, but you are allowing him to center his feelings hurt because you threatened to divorce him someday. He's hurting you now, but he wants to focus on his potential future pain that would be a direct consequence of his behavior now. Let that sink in. He is telling you exactly where you stand with him in multiple ways. Further, he's deluded if he thinks voting for Trump Republicans is going to actually be good for his finances. Maybe in the short term. The reality is that any gains he makes will be offset by the tax overhaul and tariff system. If your wealth is dependent on your income in any significant way, Trump winning would put your income at risk as women are forced out of the workplace and into a housewife role. If your income depends on either of you working overtime, Trump is giving employers a way to deny overtime premiums through creative scheduling. A lot of tax deductions and credits that primarily benefit low and middle class families are being eliminated while those that benefit the wealthiest are left intact or strengthened. We've already had a preview of his roided out trickle-down economy from his first term. Your husband is being incredibly short-sighted. Comment 5. I'm not sure what you are trying to achieve with this post. You say you don't need people telling you to leave him. However, the harsh reality is, in this situation, that is your present and your future, as long as you stick with Republican men. He is not a very good man when he puts your daughter's and every other woman's life at risk by voting for people who want nothing but destruction and power. That doesn't change, no matter how much you gaslight yourself that you can somehow fix him, or see reason. Sorry to be so blunt about it. Comment 6. This. If a man is a Republican, if he plans on voting for the GOP candidate, even if Trump keels over tomorrow and is replaced by someone who's less openly insane, if he is willfully ignorant, he is not a good man. Full stop. He can help old ladies cross the street and volunteer at a soup kitchen as a hobby, but he's still not a good man because he does not actually care about women. OP, you think you can fix your partner? You cannot. Nobody can fix another person. You can't be the person who is changing the dynamic of the relationship when you're not the bad actor. You should not have to explain why rolling back women's rights is fucked up to get someone to see that. He already knows and does not care. Update. We had a serious discussion. I went into more detail about my concerns and fears and it was intense. I was much better at presenting the case. I gave him several hypotheticals that involved a particularly gruesome set of circumstances involving his balls. I won't bore you with the nitty-gritty, but the gist was to shift his perspective. I told him to seriously consider carrying a tiny fetus in his ballsack and the fact that the risks were things like exploding balls, sepsis, etc., and the myriad of ways he could end up dead, permanently physically injured and disfigured, or unable to produce a fetus in the future if he didn't have the option of removing the fetus from his balls. I asked him if he would even want to take the risk and he agreed that he'd be very likely to remove it unless he was ready for those risks. I asked him why in the world would I be justified in telling him he has to carry it no matter what and it might only be removed after it starts to explode out of his ballsack or his organs start shutting down. Once he seemed to start grasping the enormity of what abortion encompasses and seeing why it's very important to not let unknown people control what options you have with no medical reason. I told him I lost a bit of respect for willful ignorance, and that I can tell he avoided thinking about it BC he knows in some way that it says something about his character. And I resented having to even give him a hypothetical in the first place and that if he cares for me and our daughter that he should automatically actively be using his empathy skills every day. I explained how I have demonstrated the capacity to care about and evaluate gender issues he's brought to my attention in the past. That was a difficult part of the conversation. I also told him that I do not trust him to always make good decisions for us and that I feel alone in shouldering those responsibilities. He listened and let me talk a lot. He asked if I was going to leave him and he was clearly nervous and bracing for the worst. I told him I'm not taking drastic steps like that, but I certainly will when it comes to keeping our daughter healthy and safe. I also started to say something about how I know I would lie to him in a heartbeat in a situation where our daughter needed an abortion or medical care and he interrupted me to say you wouldn't have to lie because I'll be driving the car or buying the plane tickets and we will all go anywhere we need to. Y'all, I burst into tears. We ended the conversation and he said I laid a lot on him and he needed a break but said he had things to think about. I didn't push any more politics, but I think I feel like my trust has been slightly restored. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I think he realizes that he's wading in dark and dangerous waters when it comes to our futures. Relevant comments. Comment 1. All of this reminds me so much of that scene in the show The Handmaid's Tale where June finds out that she's not allowed to access her bank account anymore and that her husband has to sign something for her to get birth control pills, and her husband dismisses her concerns, basically saying, "That's okay. I'll take care of you. No big deal, it's fine." It's easy to dismiss a concern when that concern doesn't seem to affect you directly. And the problem is that no matter what we say, no matter what example we give, Some people will always have a degree of removal from an issue that can affect their understanding and their empathy. My own husband is empathetic and caring. But he doesn't understand why someone staring down the barrel of menopause, is so angry about abortion access restrictions. He doesn't understand why a woman in a loving marriage that doesn't look likely to end anytime soon, is upset about the end of no-fault divorce. Or why as someone with no connection to prison, is upset about our horribly inequitable carceral system. And he will say he understands my objections, but then he's like, why bother wasting energy getting upset about it? I don't know how to get across to him that just because it doesn't apply to me or us right now doesn't mean it won't later. I also don't know how to get across to him that it's very difficult to see attacks on our ability to get a divorce or access an abortion as a direct slap against me as a woman. If someone punches someone else like me in the face while staring me directly in the eye to show me that they would be doing it to me if they could, that's very upsetting. But they aren't looking him in the eye, so he doesn't see it that way. Comment 2. I admire the heck out of you for having this huge conversation with your husband. Thank you for making the case for all of us. And thanks for sharing with us. I hope your example can help others who need to have serious discussions like this with people in their lives. Comment 3. I'm glad you have this talk and that he is starting to reconsider his decisions. But I hope you are very clear with him that this isn't about him setting aside his views for the special case of you and his daughter. Other women are entitled to the same respect and autonomy that he wants for his daughter. If his position is that he will pack the bags and buy the tickets for y'all, but he will nonetheless continue to vote for all other women to be oppressed, he's not a good man. OP. We talked about the women getting turned away from emergency rooms across the country because they were having pregnancy complications for babies they likely wanted to keep, and it was like I could see a gear start cranking in his head. Total silence, like he'd never considered that a lot of women who seek emergency abortions actually wanted their babies. Comment 4. My husband and I had this discussion before our first was born. This was before Roe v. Wade was overturned, but the writing was on the wall that it might go. We live in a very HCOL city for my job, but things weren't going well, and we were debating moving. I told him that as long as kids were on the table, moving to a red state was out of the question. I refused to move to a place where I would not be able to get access to care that I needed and end up dead just because we were trying to have a child. My husband brushed it off. One of his close family members is one of the most prominent OBGYNs in the country. He said that, when the worst came to worst, she would help us out. But I said, how exactly? Imagine I'm suffering from sepsis and about to die, and the hospital I'm in literally will not perform an abortion. What exactly will she do? And he stopped in his tracks. That ended the discussion right there. My husband had simply never had to consider it before. At the time, we weren't seriously thinking about kids, so he hadn't really thought it through. In any case, in a few short years, Roe v. Wade was overturned, and I ended up pregnant with our first child. I'm currently pregnant with our second. We still have regular discussions about potentially moving. Never once subsequently has he ever considered a red state. Comment 5. So glad he finally understood the reason why we need to vote the way we do to protect our bodies. But is he going to back up what he says he now understands by voting the opposite of what he's done before? Comment 6. I hate that many men only recognize women's bodily autonomy when they become fathers. I hope you really talk to him about voting Republican this year, otherwise this whole thing is really moot. Comment 7. I'm glad he understood, but he still votes Republican. The Democratic Party is still right-wing. No, they are not leftist unless you're talking about the progressives, but your husband deliberately chose to vote for the more racist, ableist, sexist, bigoted in every way party. The only reason you had this discussion is because it affects you and your daughter on the basis of gender and sex. I'm not going to tell you to get a divorce, but you should probably take a good look at your own morals and principles if you still think it's okay for him to vote the way he does. Especially given everything that has happened since 2016. Editor's note: OP seems satisfied with her discussion with her husband, whether you disagree or not, so is unlikely to update. Therefore, I have marked this conclusion. Am I the asshole for deciding to divorce after discovering that my wife had a tattoo of another man's name while I was away? My wife of 4 years got a tattoo recently with her best friend who has a very aggressive type of bone cancer. She didn't discuss it with me at all. I just did it while I was on a training mission. Came home Monday morning to her with his name tatted on her neck with a Pokemon. I have not returned home since I saw it. I have been sleeping in the barracks. I am honestly thinking about just filing for divorce. Am I wrong? Edit. I have heard from a few of my neighbors that she basically moved him in for the 6 weeks I was away on a training mission. And left a few days before I returned. She is refusing to even discuss it. All she keeps saying is it has nothing to do with me and her. Update 1. She was served divorce papers yesterday at our previous home together. She thought it would be a good idea to involve both our families without giving them a reason or context. I filed for divorce after I got home from my last training mission. So as the parents called, I told them about the tattoo and her moving him in while I was gone. And let them deal with her. Relevant comments. OP added in the comments. Spoke with my CO about it. He said I should just let Jag handle the paperwork. And he will have me in a new duty station by Monday. He said a man can't live with that level of disrespect, and I agree with him. Comment 1. What did you say to her when you first saw it? And how did she react to you? OP, I asked her what she did. And she said I got a Pokemon tattoo and showed me. I saw his name on her neck, and I just went quiet and picked up my bags and walked back on base. Went and saw my CO and had a drink with him. Comment 2. If my partner puts any other name on his body than my kids, his family or me, it's a problem. They could have done a tattoo without a name and on a place that isn't so out of the open. The tattoo on itself isn't an issue, but the name and place is. OP, exactly. It hurts that she turned me down last year about getting matching tattoos to just get one with her Pokemon Go buddy. But it's not the tattoo that is the complete disrespect and disregard that it's a constant symbol of. Update 2. Got all my ducks in a row, as they say. Sat down and spoke with my future ex-wife. She honestly expects me to just step aside and let her play house with her friend. Pause our marriage, wait till they are done, then continue our life together like nothing happened. I can't live with her plan, so I'm getting divorced. Wasted nearly 6 years on her already, not wasting any more of my life on her. Will be in my new duty station by the end of June. A fresh start, I hope, and put all this behind me. Relevant comments. How has his wife tried to reconcile? She has been endlessly trying to just communicate with me. After she failed to contact me personally, she went to our parents and siblings, and when that failed, she started contacting friends and people in my unit, spouses of people in my unit. She is absolutely relentless, and it's always the same bullshit about how this is just temporary because he is not long for this earth. And I would do the same thing for a terminally sick friend. What does her family say about everything? No, they are not at all pleased. At first, her parents came at me because all she told them was I left her out of the blue after returning from a training mission. I told the truth about how she got a neck tattoo with her friend's name and had him living in our house while I was on my training mission. Update 3. This morning, my commanding officer pulled me from a training flight to inform me of my wife's death and got me on a flight back to North Carolina. Should arrive at my parents' house in about 8 hours. A month ago, I filed for divorce and changed duty stations and cut her completely out of my life. I didn't want to hear how this thing with her friend James was temporary and how our marriage would go back to normal after he passed. I am not suicidal or anything like that, but I am profoundly saddened. I keep thinking how 6 months ago we were happy and in love. And now she took her own life when I just didn't accept what she was doing for a friend who was dying from cancer. I am riddled with self-doubt and blaming myself for her actions. Thinking about everything and our parents having been friends for decades, she is now dead in the water, another victim of her delusion. I know these were all her choices but still feel guilty for her death. I don't know if hell is real or not, but I hope James ends up there for what he has caused. Update 4. Had a meeting with the funeral home today. She already set most everything up and paid for it a little over a week ago. We are having a memorial service at my in-laws' house on Wednesday. Her ashes will need to be picked up in a few days. I have a grief counseling session on Friday morning. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I'm sorry for your loss. Did she ever admit to cheating? I might have missed it. OP. A week or so ago my mother called me and confirmed she was almost 3 months pregnant, so that confirmed she was sleeping with him when I was away for 6 weeks. Comment 2. Wait a sec. She was taking care of a friend with cancer and you lost your shit over it, causing a divorce, and that plunged her probably into a depression and she took her life. Sounds like you were the problem here, not so much her. OP. Not exactly. She hit the pause button on our marriage so she could play house with him while I was on a training mission in California. Without informing me. Was pregnant with his child when I came back and wasn't going to tell me. If it wasn't for the stupid tattoo she got with his name, I might have fallen for it. And slept with her, and she would have had me raise his child as my own. Comment 3. Oh, what a jerk. I'm so sorry. Now I think your wife committed suicide to join him in the other life. Probably both went to hell for their selfishness. OP. I'm not sure if he has passed or not. Pretty much left and crawled under a rock for the last few weeks. Comment 4. I was wondering if James was still alive. Did you say how your wife? How do I ask without sounding rude? Killed herself. OP. Found out she wrote 10 letters to different people, including me. Then she emptied the medicine cabinet while her family was out. They came home, and she was in her bed and had passed away. Comment 5. What was the nature of her relationship with him? Was she giving him palliative care or having an affair with him? OP. He was still active as in up and around hell as of last week. He was still working at the card shop, I was told. So we'll say an affair.